elemental planes. Why so long?
Unnaturals, follow curse, a werewolf, tap the stormbringer, tough for the great one, feel a rebel fire. We ignite your last desire, burning up now, never last. We are the unnaturals, yeah. Not what you planned at all. Dancing on the edge, we dare never watch us fall. The keeper of twilight tea, the arcane jangling in our chaos we live. Take what we have to give, break the pattern wild and free. Your rules mean nothing here. We'll rise above the fear, hunting now. The paladin, our shadow light struck, the keeper of twilight tea, the arcane jangling in our chaos we live. Take what we have to give, break the pattern wild and free. Rules mean nothing here, we'll rise above the fear. Unchained now, here are we. We are the unnaturals, yeah. Not what you planned at all. Dancing on the edge, we dare never watch us fall.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to the Unnaturals Gaming channel and YouTube. We're happy to see all, well, not see, hear all you guys. We want to thank everyone for your continued support. We're climbing up there in subscribers, and we can't thank you guys enough about that. That is immense, and we're getting so close. We just need to keep pushing forward. And yeah, I am the worst one here with.
The best one, as always, or the better one, let's be honest.
That's just rude. Now you're just being rude.
It's okay. You have your moments,
Yeah,
very rarely.
yeah. But yeah, and we're here with episode 11 of Tavern Talk,
Mm-hmm.
rallying the troops. But before we get started, guys, we'd like to once again talk to you guys about Streamlabs Ultra. Streamlabs Ultra is what we use for our sites, for Twitch and YouTube, and we can't recommend it enough. They have edits out the butt. I'm telling you, the edits, overlays. You can go on the App Store and you can purchase more in different overlays that you would want. It helps with recordings, it stores your recordings, lets you edit. It has everything you need to get started. And we can't recommend it enough. And if you use our affiliate link, you'll be helping out the channel as well as helping yourself out on your content creation journey. So please use our affiliate link. It'll be helping out so much. And when you do create your first video with your own overlays and on your own channel or whatever platform you're using, send us your first video so we can check out everyone's creativity. And I mean that wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. Please check it out if you're interested. We would highly recommend it. And we also have another link that we'll talk about at the end of Tavern Talk.
That's right. That's right.
But without further ado, should we hop in?
Absolutely. Bring us
So,
in there.
so Tavern Talk. Where to start? Well, our party of heroes, they made it to Mount Celesta. They had a quick conversation with some gods and some exposition, as well as an ancient and powerful ritual was given to none other than their wizard cleric, or their cleric wizard, however you want to put it, the arcane domain cleric, T. T was granted this ritual from Mistra, specifically given to help the oncoming threat that is Vecna. The spell itself is considered above ninth level for the
Yes.
time being. Um, the party themselves were told that there were, essentially, to break it down, there's three components needed to cast a spell: knowledge, which they have; power, which they needed; and essentially something they had to give up. It was basically like the component needed, the material cost of the spell. Um, so it was more than just giving up their vestige. It wouldn't be that easy. It would have to be something character defining for them. And we'll talk more about what they end up deciding on separately. They discuss it here and there, but they don't settle on it until the very end, and that's when everyone is sort of revealed what each person is willing to give up for this power, for this spell to be enacted, and for Vecna to be locked away. So, basically, after they meet not only some of Lathander and the Flesh, essentially, for all intents and purposes, Lathander and the Flesh, and his room smelled of booze and sweat and possibly something other that not needed to be stated over Tavern Talk. Uh, they met Bahamut, the Platinum Dragon, who was kind of like the grandfather figure. In all honesty, he was stern, but he was understanding. He was comforting. And then I think the last god that they met was Sarenrae, which was Lenestra's god, and Sarenrae sort of like spoke directly with Lenestra. Long story short, they had their time with their gods and they left. After they left the material plane, the ship was fully charged and they went back to the material plane, where there they went to work. Immediately they started writing letters to other kingdoms. Val started writing as many blood hunters as he could that were now no longer under Jameson's control. He started trying to build back up as much of a legion as he could. Val's brother, Cal, started working with the Rangers to try to build them up, as well as Cal's husband, Nathaniel, started building and going back to his roots as an artificer and essentially assembling weaponry for them to use. At the same time, the party would begin rebuilding parts of Neverwinter. Tat focused, focused more on the orphanage and helping children and mothers of expecting children, try to help them out as much as she could from the onslaught that Neverwinter had faced. The two paladins actually went and erected their own temples. Lenestra made a temple to Sarenrae, and it was very beautiful. It was called the Twilight Temple. And when you walk in there, you're kind of like in Twilight, and you see constellations zooming around you. It's very serene, very peaceful. Whereas Verici, on the other hand, made a smite factory. Uh, for paladins, specifically for paladins, for only paladins, and for other paladins in training, to basically smite makes right. Am I right?
That's right. Spite always makes right.
And because of that, Verici he uh, had basically started teaching people how to smite, and little by little, some NPCs slowly started taking some levels in Paladin over the weeks that they were training, and some of them started developing oaths, and there were quite a few Paladins by the end of their training montage. During this, oh yeah,
I was just laughing. And
okay.
with the training montage, I forgot all about that.
And during this training montage, Lenestra was also at some point beckoned to come to the Feywild because all of a sudden, one day during this entire training montage, Tat got a psychic, almost imprinted message from the Seelie Queen Court herself, and basically was told, refugees are coming, help them if you can. I'm doing what I can to protect our land. And Tat Lanestra ran over there, and swarms of Fey creatures were running out of the Feywild through the Fey Gate that was opened again by Neverwinter. And all of a sudden, Neverwinter became basically a refugee camp for Fey creatures that were evading the destruction of the Feywild. Lanestra went into the Feywild to check it out, without really telling anyone in her party or without getting approval, because she was like, no, I need to see what's going on. I am the keeper of light. I have to go. So she went, and she found the Feywild had essentially become barren, almost unrecognizable. All the color had gone to silver and gray, to almost like a grayscale effect. There was no more color, basically. She eventually found the Seelie Queen fighting off these almost like insidious, like spiky vines that seemed to just corrode everything they touched. They were like black barbs almost that would just wrap around structures and creatures alike, and they would essentially petrify them into obsidian stone, is what they would turn into. And she was fighting off one, and Lanestra did the best she could, and then eventually the Seelie Queen, when they had a moment of respite, the Seelie Queen knew she wasn't long for this world, as she was already beginning to turn into obsidian stone, as she had been scratched by one previously. She told Lanestra, there was a deceiver amongst us, to say the least. As much as I know that that's not shocking in the Feywild, but this deceiver worked for him. You do not trust this deceiver, for you know her well. And essentially was told, Gladys, aka Faddis, um, is not who she appears to be. Cut back to the city while this is happening, and little old Tat gets a message from Gladys saying, hey girl, so there's a music box that I need you to get rid of, and throw it in a volcano for me, please, if you wouldn't mind. Thanks, girl. That's everything. And she thinks nothing of it. Completely like, yeah, I totally makes sense. Yeah, it was from a guy. It's from an ex. Yeah, just get rid of it. Just throw it away. Well, Lanestra comes back after her excursion and basically tells everyone what's going on. Tat looks at her and says, you're lying. That's not true at all. And they all slowly start putting things together, and then they all turn to the Displacer kitten that was on their ship that's been watching them the entire time. They chase after the kitten. A fight ensues. The kitten morphs into this creature. They follow it into a noble's house, who ends up being, what was the noble? Do you remember?
Say that again?
The kitten ends up running into a noble's house. Do you remember what the noble ended up being in Neverwinter?
No, I don't. I don't even remember the
You
kitten.
So it was the cat that could become the displacer cat that
Oh,
Gladys.
yeah.
It ran into the noble's house, and then you guys lost track of it. The spell that was to locate a creature stopped working,
That's
and
right.
then you guys walked in there and you saw this noble holding these people captive in his home. Long stories ensued, and eventually the noble began to say, "All right, fine, since this is over," and morphed into a red dragon. But not just any
Oh
red
my
dragon.
god, yeah.
They finally got their dragon fight. Their dragon fight was one for the ages as they faced a red great worm. Oh boy, was that fun! That battle took quite a bit because he had obviously two forms. Um, from his mythic action, he gets to instantly resurrect
Yeah.
back to full health with everything back to him. Um, Essentially, he blasted them with a breath of fire that dealt, I believe, 124 damage to each of them. I believe some or most of them made the save, and then some were able to cast Absorb Elements. So in the end, I think it was like 75 damage to each of them, which was still a pretty heavy hit for some of them. And Neverwinter shook again. The Neverwinter was basically ripped asunder by this great worm that started to cause havoc. Our heroes at this point were around level 15, level 16, and they were fighting it as much as they could. They were bringing it down. They eventually ended up winning, and then as soon as they won, the dragon started regenerating. They
Oh my
tried
god, yeah.
everything they could to keep it from regenerating.
We
They
hit that thing with so much, so fast,
They
so hard.
used bombs on it. They used the ship to explode its bones. They used everything they could, but the mythic action is basically a true resurrection that it gets to do once. So I was like, regardless of how much they destroyed the bones, within an hour, it fully reconstituted itself to full, and they had to go at it again. The fight even worse the
Oh,
second time, but this time they were able to sort of plan it out more, and they had the blood hunters and the rangers there and some of the fake creatures there. They were doing as much as they can, casting spells, slinging bolts, shooting arrows. Someone was piloting the ship. I believe it was Olma and uh, Daryl or Dannon or whatever his name is, the sous chef. They were piloting the ship while you guys were down below. And then during that fight, something very strange happened to Toph. Do you remember?
yeah, he was ascending, if you will.
Yes, he got his dragon wings again, and at the same time that the fire dragon breathed out his breath of fire, Hove at the same time breathed out a breath of cold. Their powers locking in place essentially, and it became a stalemate. And there was damage across the field. It was quote unquote steam damage, which is still considered fire damage because I mean your skin's burning. So it was still fire damage, but it was reduced heavily because of the cold damage. But essentially, the red great worm looked at him confused, and then Toph felt this power billowing inside of him. And then in a fight with a red dragon, Toph all of a sudden was mindscaped to another fight with another dragon.
Oh
This one,
god,
a
yeah.
silver dragon, and Toph had to fight the spirit of the ancient silver dragon by himself. And Toph fought it, and he ended up winning the fight. By all means, he ended up winning using the power of his vestige and his own power. And Toph is now inherited the title of the Silver Great Worm. And in the middle of their fight with the Red Great Worm, and things looked pretty bad because Tat was very low, T was very low, everyone was very low, and Toph was just kind of standing there stunned for like a couple rounds because he was in his own mind fighting his own dragon. Once he finally came back, Toph saw this and he saw Tat in danger, and then fully activated his silver dragon form, fully shifting into a silver great worm for the first time, ascending to that power, and fought the red dragon. And it was another fight ensued. The red great worm ended up finally being killed, and its power being dismissed and sent to whoever shall be the next holder of the red dragon great worm spirit. But until then, the red dragon great worm has been destroyed in Neverwinter. The party, now ascending with these new gifts and new power, realized there was still some unfinished business that they had to do. given that they were finally able to find the devastation orbs for earth, air, and water, or sorry, earth, air, and fire, that was surprisingly in a certain portable hole that a certain someone gave them. And when they went in there to check it again, they saw things were missing, such as a certain sword that was put into the portable hole that was separated from Lenestra, who is no longer holding the sword.
Yes, the
As she,
damn hole.
Mhm. As she is now wielding her full vestige and her twilight armor given to her by her goddess, they went into the portable hole, saw the sword, the sword of darkness, or sorry, the sword of casts is missing, and when they couldn't find it, Val and Tat, with their high perceptiveness, saw there was a sliver of light in their portable hole coming from one of the corners. They walked over to it, and lo and behold, all of a sudden, they started making this hole a little bit bigger and bigger and
Yeah.
bigger.
Yeah.
And it broke through a wall to somewhere else. Their portable hole was a hole to another dimension where they could store things in like a closet in a 10 by 10 by 10 space. Um, but that closet was connected to a castle, and they broke the wall down into a throne room. There was actively no one in that throne room at the time when they broke it down, and they immediately jumped out of the hole, closed it up immediately, and I believe they opened a rift and Toph threw it in. He was
Yeah.
just like, no. But not before Tat grabbed the music box. Now realizing that everything she had been told by her friend Gladys had been faked, she opened the music box and almost like Little Mermaid, she could hear the music, the song of her dream spirit who had been long separated from her, finally returning to her, and she could feel her connection again, and she could feel her dream spirit with her. And the fake Gladys finally breaking her spell on Tat was rejected. So, after all of this, the party then goes, okay, now we need to go restart the other elemental planes, because even if we save the world, we're still going to lose earth, air, and fire, and we need those elements to stay alive. So the party activated their ship and they took off to the elemental plane. Do you remember which plane you took off to first?
Ooh, which one was it first?
It was,
It was,
if you
I
remember,
believe it. I believe no, mm, the first one I think we went to was wind.
it was fire
Fire?
actually,
Was it fire?
because Verici, after training his paladins and then the rangers and some of the blood hunters, you guys, and some of the fake creatures, you guys had partnered them up, and basically sent scouting parties to each of the other planes. And the first one you guys visited was Fire to check on that scouting party.
Oh,
hmm So after you guys made it to the Fire plane, you saw that the people that were there, they were still alive, the scouting party, but they were hot, they were sweaty, and they were miserable. And you met them, and they said, "We think we located where the gym would go, but there's something guarding it. Something very powerful and very very fast, and we don't know how to beat it. Everything we throw at it just gets eviscerated whenever we try to get close." And so the party hops onto the ship, and they start flying as fast as they can toward the center of the fire plane, essentially. They see the fires begin to die, and a bunch of the molten stone and rock has already turned into either obsidian or just stone, and the heat isn't as unbearable as you would think in the fire plane. Being in the center of essentially a volcano, it was almost mild temperature. It was like a mild summer's day, essentially.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't excruciatingly hot, which was scary considering it was the fire plane. Um, so they kept going as fast as they can, faster and faster, until finally they made it to like the centralized citadel, which was now solidified obsidian stone that looked like at one point on all four sides that came out of it was just flowing lava that has now petrified into stone, and in the center of it was this sort of like stone pedestal that was laid empty. Cat flies over and essentially places the orb, but as she does it, something begins to hunt them faster and faster. The orb begins to ignite, and they have to get out of there because that stone's going to explode like it did in the water temple, and something's chasing them. They got to be fast about this. So Tat hops back onto the ship, and they start flying as fast as they can. There's a whole chase scene that's involved. They are trying to escape whatever this thing is, and they finally get a good look at it, and they are being chased by a full-fledged phoenix.
Yeah, that's right. The damn phoenix.
A full-fledged phoenix is chasing after
Oh
them.
my god, yeah. I remember thinking like, oh, we've survived so much. I'm pretty sure we're gonna die to this chicken.
Tat eventually, when the party realizes like the ship is not able to sustain any more damage, the ship has taken multiple fire beatings from this phoenix, and the phoenix has hardly taken anything. Tat finally hops onto the edge of the ship, runs out to it, and holds out her hand to the fire phoenix and says, "Stop."
That's right.
And everything just stops. The fire phoenix looks at her, and in primordial, because Tat was the only one that could speak primordial because of her storm sorcery abilities.
Because
Um,
because of course.
I mean, storm sorcery. What else is there? Um,
Right.
Tat looks at the phoenix and says, "We're not here to hurt you. We're here to help you. And if you help us, you might not die." Essentially. And
Maybe.
the phoenix laughed and said, "I am from the immortal flame. I will never die." Tat then looked at it and said, "Look, you might be from the immortal flame, but even flames can freeze, and even flames can be put out. So, at one point or another, you're going to need us, and we're going to need you. So please, please, don't hurt us.
Yes.
Fight with us." And the phoenix took a minute, kind of looked at her, and then all of a sudden a massive eruption happens in the centermost of the plane. All of you kind of look at each other and go like, "Oh, was that supposed to happen?"
Yeah. Was is this right? Is this correct?
And then immediately you see like shooting up toward the sky a beam of light, and then you get a closer look and it's like, that's not light. Lava is just spewing for miles up into the air and comes crashing down onto the fire plane again. You see the molten lava begins to pick back up, stone begins to melt again, and the entire stone-like structure of the fire plane begins to become a moving amalgamation, almost as if it was a slime moving, but it's made of pure lava and melted stone. And the firebird looks at Tat and says, "You have brought back my plane, and for that, you have my thanks and my assistance." And she essentially like flicked out a feather, and it kind of burned its way along Tat's arm, and she was marked with the mark of the fire primordial, aka the mark of the phoenix, was placed upon Tat. Um, it gave her a bunch of cool abilities, such as being whenever she heals, she gets to heal even better. It's an additional 2d6. And then she also can deal more fire damage on spells. It's an additional 2d6 on fire damage for spells. It was a really good trade. She also gets fire immunity. And also, only once, she can summon the phoenix from the fire plane to assist her. She doesn't have control over it, but it is friendly to her and her allies only. But yeah, she can do that once, but there is a caveat. Once the Fire Phoenix is summoned, the mark of the Phoenix is burned away, and she no longer has access to any of the other abilities. So it's like a one-time, very powerful summon, and then gone. After the fire plane, you guys then went to the air temple. When you guys made it to the air temple, it was surrounded by this everlasting storm that just brewed. You saw this sort of empty temple that had a place for us, like a sphere to go, and there was broken glass everywhere. And Verici had placed the stone in the center, and bolts of lightning began to strike it like crazy. Thunder began to ring out for all to hear, and before you guys had time to even move, this giant feathered-like snake, huge, bigger than the mountain that was you were standing on that was floating, began to encircle the entirety of this kingdom. And they see this huge feathered uh, dragon sort of thing. Do you remember what it looked like?
I do not remember what it looked like.
So it was essentially a picture the celestial snake, the Quetzalcoatl. I think that's what it's called.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, picture that. Except instead of it being celestial, it had more draconic features, and it looked more like a Chinese dragon. And it had multiple wings every so often between its sections.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm. And you guys saw this creature, and it looked down to Verici and said, "What are you?" And Verici basically said, "Well, I'm a paladin of Lathander. Um, I'm a smiter." And
I'm a smite.
the
That's right.
and the creature kind of looked at him and said, "I am the Elder Tempest. I am in charge of the plane of air." And this sort of like feathered snake thing looked like he was made of clouds, and just kind of looked at him and basically said, "What do you seek?" And Verici's like, "I don't really seek anything other than maybe your assistance in facing this great evil that's coming." And it kind of looked at him and said, "I see and feel no dishonor within your words. For that, I bless you with the cloud." And Verici's arm was struck with a bolt of lightning, and he was marked with the mark of the Elder Tempest. Verici could essentially fly. He had a bunch of lightning abilities and thunder abilities, and then obviously matching tats once per day. He could summon the Elder Tempest, and it would be out and about, but it would take away his mark as well.
Yes.
Um, After that, we went to the Earth domain, where I believe Val hunted down where the stone goes because it was in a giant mountainous forest. The trees the size of mountains that seemed to splot out the land, but the trees were dying and decaying, so it looked more like a fall in the Midwest, essentially, covering the ground with huge leaves and dirt mounds that seemed to just be just seemed to go on forever. Like one tree was the size of a literal skyscraper, and that was the average size for all these trees that seem to be here, mountainous in size. And you eventually found where it went. And do you remember what happened when you started activating it? Do you remember what you met?
A giant, and this is in the Earth plane, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the giant mountainous tortoise. Like it was,
Yes.
it was legitimately like the world turtle. It was just rock and stone and mountain on its back. And it, and it was the slow one.
It was super slow, but probably the most tankiest out of all of them.
Probably.
It was the tankiest out of all of them, and its name was Zartan. As soon as Val placed the Earth Devastation Orb onto its pedestal, and he walked off, and it began to activate, he began to see almost instantaneously the ground and the trees around him begin to instantly regain their color, their leaves, they began to grow again. Beasts and other creatures that had long since ran from the plain to search for other food began to return. Birds returned, prey, predator, each, they all returned. And as they moved to the ship, they hadn't seen the primordial until the very mountain they were standing on began to move. And lo and behold, as it did, they jumped onto their ship and flew around until they saw this massive face appear. And it was a face of essentially a snapping turtle looking at them. And it looked at them and said, I am Zaratan. Why have you done this, mortals? In a very slow, sort of like growing fashion, it slowly made its way to them and it kind of looked at them with its sort of like gem eyes as they could see the underbelly of this creature was littered with gemstones that had been there since its body condenses whatever it falls on, and that just keeps condensing and condensing until it made crystals and gems of all sorts. Its body underneath was littered with these beautiful gemstones. It looked at them, and Val, I believe, spoke up. Do you remember what you said to it?
I do not remember what I said to it. I really don't. Like, I barely remember this part. Yeah, I think I blocked it out for good reason.
The tortoise looked at Val and basically said, "Well, speak, whoever placed the stone." And basically, Toph like pushed Val up, and Val was like, that was me. I am the wolf of the group. I'm the one that put it in there. Are you good now?" And the tortoise sort of looked at him and said, "I feel great. I thank you. And is there..." Essentially, he was way more relaxed than the other primordials they met so far, and essentially was trying to just, out in the nicest way possible, say, "Is there anything you need?" And Val was just like, "I don't trust this thing. At any point, it could just snap us in half."
Yeah, yeah.
But essentially, eventually, a conversation has led to, yes, we need your help facing this great threat, the one thing that nearly destroyed your plane to begin with. Will you help us fight it? And he said, yes, of course. And you could see along Val's arms, gem dust cut into it and growing these like sort of like almost like these skin infusions of gem down his arm. And he was marked with the mark of Earth. And he gained like an increase to your AC. You also had natural resistance to, I believe, force, bludgeoning, and piercing now, and slashing. You also, like everyone else, could once per day summon Zarotan, but if you did, it would take everything from you, from his benefit that he gave you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then you guys left, and you guys went to the water plane again, which Val was so excited to have to go to the
Oh
water
my.
plane again.
I'm hyperventilating just thinking about it.
As they dived the ship into the ocean, completely submerging underwater, Toph was like, "How are we going to get this thing's attention?" And Tat's like, "I don't know. I guess we could just try to head over to where the temple is." And they're all just like, "We can't keep searching for these temples if we don't have like a direct location for them. Like, we don't truly remember where it is in this endless ocean." So Toph is like, "Okay, I have another idea." Toph jumps out to the side of the ship, breathes in as deeply as he can, rages, and at the same time he sticks his head out, partially shifts his head into his dragon form, and roars.
Yeah.
Roars as loud as he possibly can underwater, and then pulls his head back. And then they wait. An hour passes, nothing happens. And then all of a sudden the ship becomes jostled, starts becoming lifted and shifted around, and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, um, yeah, all of a sudden, you hear the Leviathan sort of like pick up and say, "Why are you here?" And the Leviathan, Toph and the rest of them just say, well, we were just looking for some help, if you wouldn't mind." And the Leviathan said, "Well, I do owe you one because it did promise them from the very beginning. Yes, I owe you one. So if you ever need something from me, all you have to do is ask." And so that's what they did. They asked the Leviathan to finally return the favor, essentially. And Toph was blessed with the blessing of the sea, and he could swim underwater. He could breathe underwater, and he could deal additional, I believe, bludgeoning damage whenever he hit. And then, obviously, of course, he could also, as well, summon the Leviathan to help him. After the party did all of that, they finally headed back to the material plane, readied the rest of their party. A little bit more shenanigans ensued, of course. They started messing around with a certain puzzle box on the ship for a bit. Found a key that could unlock doors, and each door it unlocked seemed to lead to a different sort of like planar dimension, which was really fun to mess around with. They found the mirror dimension, which was super fun. After that, the party eventually was ready to invade where Vecna was located. They had diviners, and they also had Tat look into where he is using their abilities, and they all pinpointed Vecna is currently located in the Shadowfell. So they were like, okay, that's where we're going to go. And on the day before they went there, the sky opened up with this purple, black clouds and blue and teal lightning. And falling from the ground this time, because it's never rained before with these clouds, was this sort of like inky, purpley sludge that began to rain. And it rained, and it rained. Harder and harder and harder. They all seeked shelter from this rain, as it seemed anyone that was hit with this rain seemed to vanish after being in it for so long. They ran as fast as they could inside, and as soon as they got inside, they waited out the rain. And I believe that's where we'll end for this session of Tavern Dog. Do you have any questions, Mr.
Yes.
Val
Yes.
/ Aaron / worst one?
Where did you get the idea for these? What did you call them? Primordials?
They were essentially, because the Titans that would have ruled these planes were locked away. Still, they were asleep. These were essentially like the living embodiments of the Titans' will. So they are the primordials for all
They were
intents and purposes.
so they were lesser primordial.
Yeah, they're essentially like I would say almost like the beast forms of the Titans that sort of like just reign supreme over their domains.
Right.
That's sort of what I would picture them as. They're not as intelligent, not as strong as actual Titans, but they can definitely put up a fight, and they're essentially the guardians of their realm.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yes. So I was looking for days to see like, okay, what would each realm sort of like thing be? Because you know, in like the water plane, everyone talks about how the Kraken is like one of the most powerful water elemental. Well, Kraken for all intents and purposes is an elemental, I believe. It may be a monstrosity actually. The Kraken,
I believe it's an elemental.
um, but the Kraken was always there. But I always like the idea of what if the Kraken wasn't the water elemental's guardian. It was just the most powerful thing at the time. And no, Kraken is actually monstrosity.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wasn't it created for? Don't pay no never mind to me.
Okay. Okay. The Kraken was created originally as during the war between Titans and gods, and it got left in the water plane and basically became the great powerful sea monster, essentially. So yeah. Um, while that was happening, though, the Titan Guardians, essentially, I was really going back and forth in my head on what I wanted them to be, and I knew the Fire Guardian had to be a Phoenix. I knew that. But I was like, what should each other plane be? And I was looking at really powerful titans or like really powerful elementals, and I saw the Elder Tempest and I was like, ooh, that's air. Automatically that's air and storm. And then the Zaratan, I was like, oh, there we go. We got him. I was just like, Mr. President, we got him, sort of situation. And then Leviathan was right after that, and I was like, okay, well, this was easy enough. Moving on. I just liked them. They just fit so well for what I wanted because you had the sea monster essentially, the storm dragon, the living tortoise, and the phoenix.
I love
So
that
yeah,
mine was a tortoise. Like I love that
yeah.
so much.
I mean, it wasn't yours. It's just what the. I mean, it made the most sense. I mean, I guess I could like to be fair. Uh, in all honesty, there was a lot of things that could have fit for any of them. I could have gone an Ogimash, which is essentially still a moving mountain. It's a legit moving mountain. It's not a tortoise at all. It's a titan on two legs that is made of gemstones and rock. I could have done that, and then for the water domain, instead of doing the Elder Tempest, or instead of doing the Leviathan, I could have done the uh, Olhydra, Olihydra,
Yeah.
which is literally a water elemental with several heads,
Ooh, no.
and it's a walking tidal wave.
Yeah, that's a no from me, good buddy.
And then for the fire plane, if I didn't do Phoenix, I could have done the Imix, which is a legit sentient fire. Yeah,
Nice.
it is sentient fire. So yeah, it grows a face and everything. And then for air, instead of doing like the Elder Tempest, I could have done something as simple as like a Thunderbird or something like that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go a little bit on my way and be like, no, these guys are powerful. Like if you guys tried to fight them, I was like, it's gonna have devastating consequences. Which I knew you guys at this point weren't gonna try to fight them if you didn't have to. Like obviously, if they kept pushing it, you would have because you're not gonna just sit down and let them kill you. But it was one of those things where it's like I wanted them to seem imposing enough to where like you don't want to fight them. You want to reason with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you have another question?
Yes. So, as we were as the group was coming together to acquire the more power that we needed, did you already have in mind? We already got the seal, right?
The seal?
Yeah, for Vecna.
Yeah. The ritual, yes. You guys had already gotten
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ritual.
yeah. Did you already have in mind how you were gonna play that out, or I'm gonna make it as difficult as possible? You're level 20 by the time you get here. Like, what's going on? Did you have steps or were you just playing it by ear, or did you have a vague idea of what we needed to acquire in order to achieve what we were wanting to achieve? But and if you
Mhm.
did have a plan, did you have it set up in a way to where you were not going to make it easy on us?
Well, to be honest, when you guys started sending like the scouting parties and all the other parties and started divvying up tasks to like other strong members within Neverwinter and basically sending them on their own mini adventures, I didn't know if you guys were going to ever step foot into the elemental plane again, but you guys had asked if they were successful, if the planes had been restarted and all that. And I had rolled behind the screen, and I'll be dead honest with you, I didn't roll above a 10 for any of them. So I was like, no, they have not. None
Uh,
of those planes have been restarted yet. Like the luck checks on them to see if they reactivated within like the weeks of them being there. No, I'm sorry, they haven't. They're failing that bad right now.
Dang.
Uh,
Dang.
so had they succeeded, it would have been a different story because then different people would have gotten the benefits from those planes, and then the Leviathan that still owed you guys sort of like a one off. If Tove had like asked for it to come to him, that would have been an interesting conversation. But essentially, all intents and purposes, it really just depended on what you guys want to do. Like I had ideas on how you guys could become more powerful. Like if you guys had never fought that dragon and Toph had never like ascended to his dragon form, that would have been something that would have been worked on during the time that you guys were in Neverwinter. If Tat wanted to access more of her cards because they finally ascended to high, I think, ascended status, and they got very powerful. Um, yeah, it was a lot of back and forth on what I was wanting you guys to do in my head. Because for you, it could have been like you were teaching more and more blood hunters, and I would have had more blood hunters come to you, like less Lycan, and it would have been like profane soul blood hunters are coming, ghost, Order of the Ghost Slayers, and mutagens are
Oh
coming,
yeah,
and they would have heard from you because for the most part, you were just teaching the Order of the Lycan because that was all that was in Neverwinter essentially after Jameson was killed. That was essentially like the number one blood hunter group at
yeah.
this moment in time because
D-
of how many
did we
Jameson turned.
did we discuss who Val anointed to run the Profane Soul and the Ghost Slayer?
I don't believe so. I'm trying to remember if you did that before or after Vecna, because I
I
think
did that before because I
okay,
needed them to rally as many hunters as possible, train the new bloods as we were calling them, and get them ready because war's coming, and the war that happened thousands of years ago is back on our doorstep, and we're gonna need everything we can get. I believe Val anointed. Let me see. Let me look at my notes real quick.
you're fine.
I have my old notes right here on paper. I Val anointed. Oh, me
You
better.
continue. Yeah.
Uh,
Um.
he anointed Elena, Elena of the
Mm-hmm.
Black Forest, who
Mm-hmm.
was in charge of the profane souls, and then Briggs of the Iron Clan. He was in charge. He was to be in charge and train the Ghost Slayers.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you did that. At the same time, other people from other kingdoms started coming in. You guys got the Black Staffs from Waterdeep, which is a collusion of mages and warriors that use.
Yeah, continue. Cutting in and out, bro. You still there?
Yes, 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 yes. Um, but essentially, uh, basically, you guys had been going back and forth with all these new arrivals. One of them being the Blackstaffs, like I mentioned, and they stated you'll have us with you, and they control these sentient golems all throughout Waterdeep,
Mm-hmm.
and they said even if the golems are destroyed in battle, we need not worry as they will be reconstituted back at Waterdeep. So even they had stated like they would use Waterdeep itself to reconstitute. Like they would, their bodies would become the buildings, the stone, the floor, all that stuff. So yeah, um, but yeah, that's what I was. But after that, I think that's all that happened, and all the like main new people. I think you guys also got another group called the Arcane Brotherhood, but essentially, did you have any other questions? Okay, okay, okay. Well, we will definitely do that, and I believe we'll call it here. Do you want us lead? Do you want to lead us out, worst one?
Yes, I have all my questions for the end of
And
the going towards
episode
the end.
12 will be the final episode.
Is it 12 or
Uh,
13?
It will be 12 because we're on 11 right now.
All right, all right, all right. Well, then I'll save all my questions for that right there. And yes, but I do have some closing remarks, guys.
Hmm.
We're big boys now. We
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. We have sponsor.
We do. We have sponsors.
We have sponsors. We're big boy channel now. Uh,
Yes.
but we're not professional because I gotta find it.
No, we are not.
Yes.
Especially the worst one. We are not professional.
Listen, we have been partnered with Streamlabs Ultra and GEVI, and they are a household appliance company, and they're partnering with us so that we can bring to you guys an elevation in your household appliance system and anything that you would need, anywhere from your, they have great, wonderful products, such as like their ice makers, their coffee makers, their vacuum cleaners. These are what they're offering on the Black Friday sale deal that's going to be coming. And they reached out to us, and we reached back out to them and to share this with you guys because these are wonderful products and good gets on Black Friday. They're, it's going to be amazing, and we're going to be getting some ourselves so we can show it off to you guys as well. But we'll have the link to GEVI in the description below on all our videos, and so you guys can please go check it out. We'll have our code link in there as well. If you use our link, you'll be helping out the channel immensely, and you'll be helping you guys out because they can be good gifts for the holidays, in the Black Friday sale deal. You're gonna be getting them cheaper, and then you can give them as gifts to holiday, Christmas, birthdays, New Year's, whatever. This is the time to do it, and I personally am getting to the vacuum cleaner and ice maker. So, best one, are you still there? Or did I lose you? Did I lose you?
Can't think of it. It was honestly, we we love it when you guys follow, like, subscribe, everything in between. So keep it up, keep commenting, keep watching us. We love to talk and chat with you all. And as the worst one always says,
Yes. Have an unnatural evening, guys. We'll see you in the next one.